like to go into the philosophy of how it is impossible to be alone. I know I talked about this before on a previous video, but I would just like to explore that theory or that train of thought, just with some more recommendations, or just anything like that. So as a person, as an individual, there's a lot of things that we would like to do. There's a lot of accomplishments that we would like to achieve. Unless you just want to be someone who just wants to become stagnant or just kind of stay the same. Go to work, come home. I mean, outside of that, there's a lot of things that a lot of people try to do, the recognition and things like that. Social media makes it very apparent now, because it allows us to interact and talk and laugh and like and comment, share, restitch or whatever the fuck it is, like just all that shit, right? So, that's a form of recognition, having, becoming, investing time in social media to understand and interact with people. You become an influencer, you become, some sort of entrepreneur type, whatever, and it's all for monetary gain, especially for the people that are monetized on those platforms. And, that's an accomplishment for themselves, and they have received that recognition. But what comes with that? It comes with the fact that, okay, this person is out here spreading their ideals, their beliefs. They're setting boundaries on what they believe is right and wrong. They document their journey through life, the many different changes they go through. Whether it's working out or making people laugh, or how to cook something, or how to manage a home with multiple children, or how to just better homekeeping hacks, just anything like that. But what it all comes down to is that people do these things for a facet of reasons, and it's not just for the recognition. But the most I'm gonna say that the most I think like the most effective thing about that aspect with technology nowadays, with social media and the interaction, is the fact that these things can go viral. These things get spread quickly and be shared. You gotta imagine, like, it's back in like 1898, nobody knew certain things. Somebody could know how to fix this issue with whatever the fuck it was that was going on at that time, but it wasn't like the entire country knew. But where we're at now in this day and age, that information can spread very fast. And the fact that these things go viral means that people are giving it attention, means that people are paying attention. And it culminates to, we're not lonely in that aspect. There's so many things that we can look at online, from just anything. It may take a while for some videos to go viral, but they're still there in that technological ether, in that cloud, whatever the fuck it is there for you to look at. That means somebody made it for you. It's not in a book. It's not, in some random, family heirloom treasure chest that you got to go find. It's out there. You can just grab it, just take it. It's right there. You learn wisdom, you learn knowledge. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that everything is good to learn from social media or whatever the fuck it is, but I'm a YouTube guy. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of educational things on there. I'm not on TikTok or nothing. And I'm not trying to take away the value of what these things can bring, because again, like, you know, it depends on what you're looking for on there. If you want to be educated, if you want to be taught something, if you want to be, you know, if you want to learn a new recipe, or, you know, like it's there for that. So, you know, when it comes to that, the social media, the technological standpoint, from that moment, like, it's impossible to be alone. It's impossible. That's why phones are so addictive, because we're in our minds for the most part. Nobody knows our thoughts unless we say what we're thinking. But when it comes to our phone, like, we know what we're looking for. This is our personal property in some kind of sense, you know what I'm saying? And it interacts with our brain the way that it does. It doesn't require us to talk, you know, unless we choose to FaceTime or whatever the fuck it is. But, you know, we got our thumbs and we just fucking type it at a million words a minute, you know? So it's easier that way with those phones and the dopamine hits and the laughs and all that, because, you know, everybody wants to escape. Everybody wants to just temporarily get away from the challenges and the things that they face in their life right now. And there may be something that resonates with them, something that makes them laugh, something that teaches them, you know, how to, you know, cook a steak and butter, or just anything, you know, and that resonates with them, and they're not so lonely. So that's understandable. But too much of it, an overindulgence of it, can become a habit. It can become toxic. It can, like, there's a lot that it could hinder you from, especially just trying to chase that hit of that dopamine, you know. Now also, you have authors, writers, poets, philosophers, people that make these, or they write these books, and they have these different views, and, you know, and just the way that they think and the way that they write. And they're not doing it for themselves, but they're doing it for other people. They want other people to see their point of view, their mind, how they're able to put together such a compelling story, or such an emotional piece of literature, like a poet or a poem, you know what I'm saying? Like, they sit there and they think and they ponder and they contemplate and they write what it is that they write, and they can philosophize about it or whatever it is. And it's not like they keep it hidden away in some hidden shelf. They consider it, they write it, they read it, they go over it with people that specialize in reading and writing. There's some critique, there's some back and forth, but once it is refined to what it needs to be the most effective, then it is put out and presented to the world. And the world is flabbergasted, blown away in awe of the work that these people make. And it's because their minds think that way. Their minds think that, how could I make a story? How could I write this poem? How can I expound on this type of philosophy? It's because their minds think that way, and sometimes their minds can't help it. I think maybe they receive validation in their early life, and they took to that, and that's what made them who they were, to be able to write and make these things, because people enjoy their literature. You know, those little breadcrumbs led to them constantly wanting to improve, to challenge themselves, to present something that could, you know, that the world could receive and even further validate and affirm that, yes, this is a great novel. You know? I don't know, because when it comes to writers, especially for writers that are still around when their work is published and, you know, they can get all this recommendation, New York Times bestseller, Pulitzer Prize winner, whatever it is, like, they really got to be in a mindset to be humble. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, there's plenty of people that have came before them. There are plenty of people that inspired them. And that's another link to, you know, the impossibility of being alone, is the fact that this writer in this day and age that has not only received validation for the work they did as a young high school student, but is currently pursuing and making the best novel, and probably has already made the best novel, and is published, and they're getting recognition for it. But not only did they, you know, come along with those types of affirmations, but they internally, you know, they internalized a lot of works from other authors, and that gave them inspiration. You know, it's like a chain, you know what I'm saying? It's a chain. It's like, it's all linked together. It all connects. It's all connected. It's impossible to be alone. It's impossible to be alone. Right? So, you got that aspect of it. You know, you got, you know, works that have proven the test of time. I don't know who wrote the Bible. I don't know. But I do know that, you know, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is one of the most controversial stories ever. You know, I do know that The Mysterious Stranger, even though this album is, or even though the novel is not finished, I know the very last chapter is some really thought-provoking and even sometimes borderline crying in a self-pitying way. Like, I know that is, you know, I was affected by that last chapter. I'll just say that. You know what I'm saying? There are books out there that affect us in so many ways. You know what I'm saying? And it's even more better if it can be translated onto a movie screen. Right? So we got that aspect. And, you know, obviously the biological aspect of it is the fact that, you know, there is, you know, biologically there is a person that is naturally recognized biologically as a woman, and then there's another person who is naturally recognized biologically as a man. And once these two people or persons come together, they are able to create life. Right? So you have that aspect, right? And then you have, you know, you have like the safety of society for the most part, I'll say. But, you know, we don't have dirt roads that are, you know, that have piles and piles of manure on the side of the road. You know what I'm saying? We have these very effective, well, for the most part, we have a very effective highway system called the interstate. This was inspired by the Autobahn that was made and engineered by the Nazis during World War II. Eisenhower went over there as the supreme fucking commander leader of the Allied forces, and he saw that shit and he was like, we bringing this over back to America. You know? So when it comes to looking at this type of shit, when it comes to looking at like highway system, and there's signs that'll tell us road closed or lane closed or exit, detour, mile markers, because look, man, mile markers are important. You could be traveling and you pass mile marker 286 on fucking I-95 North, and you trying to get somewhere, and goddamn, you know, something happens, you got to call somebody, they don't know where you at, but hey, you passed that mile marker. You know exactly where you're at. You can say, oh, hey, I'm at this mile marker. Oh, you should be in this city. So, okay, yep, we know exactly where you're at. You know, so it's things like that. It's lights. You got street lights. You got traffic lights. You got flashing lights. There's a lot of things that contribute to the American highway system. Whether it's the interstate, whether it's local roads. And, you know, granted, some of these local roads in these cities, man, look, y'all trifling. Some trifling ass D's going on. Y'all better fix it. I'm just saying that. But getting back to the main point, it's like all that is there because it prevents a catastrophe. It's supposed to prevent a catastrophe. Even the highways are, well, for the most part, they are wide enough for certain aircraft to land, okay? And that's in case of emergency. You know, it's things like this that we really gotta look at and consider. It gives us a sense that there is a type of forward thinking that should be administered to the masses, to the people. You know, I've always said present me looks out for future me. So it's like it has to be like a forward thinking type of motion, because when you think that way, then, you know, that lets you know, hey, I'm thinking about somebody else. Let me put this sign here. Let me put these lights here. Let me make sure these traffic lines are painted. Let me, you know, like, we got funding going into this American highway system like this, and they're thinking about us, right? And then you have other things like water treatment facilities. You know, it's not like every man for themselves where they gotta go have these 55-gallon drums of rainwater. You know, we have a watering system that we are able to use that allows us to take a shower, brush our teeth, flush the toilet, you know, clean and scrub, whatever the hell it is, wash our clothes, you know, boil some water, just anything, you know what I'm saying? You know, so the fact that, I mean, and I'm not gonna, like, I don't drink tap water, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that water is there is a convenience, right? So when you think about these things, when you think about the highways, when you think about the water treatment facilities, when you think about, you know, hospitals, and look, man, there is nothing under the sun, and hear me when I tell you this, there is nothing under the sun that says we are meant to be alone. There's nothing under the sun, except, I will say this, except for our own device and deception of our minds. Outside of that, you can literally walk outside and just embrace and look at how beautiful these things are. A park bench, right there. Has somebody's name on it that may have passed away 50 years ago, but hey, this park bench is in this park and you can sit here. You know? So we have to, I believe we have to really think about ourselves in that aspect. It's going to help us out a lot. And I think, you know, it'll lead us to, you know, a group, a gathering of people that we can really be close with. Trusting that this world is designed for us not to be alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really sets the stage. But that's how we got to think about it. Like, those, you know, if you think about it, like, whatever clothing you're wearing right now, whoever made that shirt, or those or the undergarments, or those shoes, or those socks, or those glasses, or those contacts, whoever made these things, right? They had no idea that they were making them for you to wear this day as you are listening to this video. If you're driving your car, the people, the company that made this car had no idea that you would be financing this car. You probably could have paid cash, you know? Or the phone that you were holding. You know, nobody had no idea that you would be the owner of that phone. So again, like, these things are not made just to be made. They're made for you. They're made for us. It is impossible to be alone. It's impossible. You go to a restaurant, you can order, you know, whatever entree or you know, whatever it is. But the person that's back there that's cooking your food, they don't know that they're making it for this person. They don't know that. They're just making it. It's part of a list. You know? The fact that I'm making this video, I don't know who I'm making it for, but I'm making it. And I'm trying to bring you to the idea to see that it is impossible to be alone. Sidewalks, buildings, just anything that you can think of, man. It's crazy. And then, like, just even with nature itself, nature is its own thing. Mickey from Rocky says that, what did he say? He said nature is smarter than what people think. I think that's what he said. I gotta go back to it. Nature is smarter than what people think. And so, like, when you look at nature in the way that it is, it's like, you know, nature gives us some beautiful days throughout any season. I don't care if it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. We can have the most beautiful days in the spring. We can have some of the most beautiful days in the summer. Some of the most beautiful days in the fall and the winter. But all of those days, like, I have specific days that I feel are beautiful to me. You have days that you feel that are, you know, specific and beautiful to you. But at the end of the day, like, you know, there's beautiful days. But, you know, when, you know, because you got to look at it, you got to look at everything. You got to look at, okay, the placement of the moon and the sun and the stars and the clouds and the breeze and the this and the that. You see some beautiful things in the winter, man. Icicles, the frozen waterfalls, the ponds that you can ice skate on. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, when it comes to the fall, like that smell of autumn, those leaves and those colors, right? That, you know, that feeling of festivity. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's there. And it's beautiful. You know? Between the spring and the summer, you know, you got hurricane season. It can be unforgiving. You got tornadoes, you got tsunamis, like you got some unpredictable, unforgiving type of weather. You know, there's a good and there's a bad side to it. But even still, like, even in that aspect, how is it impossible for us to be alone? Is because we are brought together in the good and in the bad of nature. When you really think about it for what it is. Katrina was a very unfortunate event that happened. A very unfortunate, you know, natural event or natural disaster that happened, right? Very unfortunate. But through the good and the bad, you know, it brought us together. You know, there was earthquakes that have happened that have brought us together. There were tsunamis that have happened that have brought us together. You know, so then you got to think about it. Well, like, nature is going to do what nature does. It doesn't give a damn. It don't care. It's going to do what it does. You know, like the West Nile virus. Like, when that shit came out, man, they was freaking the fuck out. So we banded together through the good and the bad. Came up with a vaccine, I believe. You know what I'm saying? The swine flu, mad cow disease, like even rabbit fever. People had to, you know, Like back in the days, it was brutal, man. It was fucking brutal. And people just sat and dealt with that shit for hundreds of years until technology, until people found these solutions to try to save more people. You know what I'm saying? So the evolution of man's battle with nature and the coexistence with nature, you know, it evolved. You know, I mean, we can't predict everything that's going to happen. We can only assume. But in the meantime, as we assume, we can prepare. And as we prepare, we can execute. And when we execute, we reach a goal to save as many people as we can. Or, you know, there could be a beautiful day where there's like, you know, just a beautiful 4th of July evening. Or a beautiful, quiet, nice, easy little snowstorm. Not too brutal, you know what I'm saying? That brings us together. It's impossible to be alone, man. It's impossible. You know? I think, you know, this world, man, it's I think we have to explore it in that kind of way. We got to. We have to explore it in that kind of way to make us appreciate it. Because right now in America, everybody's on edge, man. People don't give a fuck. People don't care. People is heartless. Granted, you know, there's going to be some relationships and connections that we come across that are going to be, you know, life-changing, emotional, deep. And sometimes we may have to let go. And that's, you know, it's unfortunate that those things happen. But, you know, we shouldn't let that be the end-all be-all to make us lose faith in humanity. Because somebody hurt us, we shouldn't, you know, negatively approach the world with like, fuck you and fuck everybody, or be specific about a certain gender or, you know, non-binary. Like that shit should not matter, bro. What should matter is, okay, this has happened to me, but I still exist. I'm still here. I'm still alive to embrace and appreciate everything that I'm able to embrace and appreciate in this lifetime. You know? So I'll leave y'all with that, man. And, you know, just like I said, we got to shift our mindset, man. I think we got to start thinking that way. You know, there was this last thing I'm gonna put out. I can't remember the name of this samurai, but he was an actual person. He wrote this book. This dude, he like spent a lot of time in solitude, and he wrote like these 21 rules, and one of them was like, don't think too much of yourself, but like, you know, think of the world, think more of the world type, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm only paraphrasing, but you know, one of those rules, because like I didn't understand what he was saying, you know, because for a long time, you know, I was always thinking like, okay, well, it's just me. It ain't nobody else. You know, I'm the one that can make shit happen type shit, you know. But now that I think about it, it's like, you know, hey, there's no way that I can be alone, because somebody who has made or contributed to building this world up, you know, they didn't know that I was going to be traveling this world. They didn't know I was going to be driving on this interstate that they made fucking 60 years ago. Like they wasn't thinking about that. And so I should be appreciative of that. And somebody made this. These things are provided. You know what I'm saying? So think less of yourself, but think more of the world is what I'm saying. I think that's kind of what he was getting at. But anyway, I'll leave y'all with that. Peace.